Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird. If that mockingbird don't sing, Mama's gonna buy you a diamond ring. Now, in the days of the Old West, there were a lot of towns that sprang up right along where the wagon trains went. And these towns sometimes were for the sole purpose of outfitting those wagon trains as they came across the plains. Most of the business in those towns was done by the barter system. That means people went in and traded. They found that they didn't need grandma's old bureau as much as maybe they needed some sugar or some flour or some seed. So there were some really good trades that could be made. Now, Hank ran one of these little trading posts, and he liked to strike a good bargain. But Hank was also very honest. One night, just at closing, a woman walked into Hank's store. She had long dark hair and a long white dress, and as she came in, she was looking around frantically, and he could tell after a moment that she wasn't able to speak. And so in order to help her, he began reaching things off the shelves. No, she didn't need flour. No, she didn't need salt. Finally, from a tall shelf, clear up high, he brought down a small tin of milk. Yes, that was what she wanted. Well, he pushed that tin of milk across the counter toward her, trying to figure out how to explain the bartering system to her, when she grabbed that tin of milk, and she left the store, leaving behind a pearl necklace. Now, Hank knew that that milk was not worth as much as a pearl necklace, and so he picked up the necklace and he went outside to try to explain it to the woman. But she was gone. Hank finally brought that necklace back in, he put it in the drawer, he closed up his shop. But the next night, that same woman with that haunted expression upon her face came into the store. She began gesturing up toward those tins of milk. Hank took out the necklace and he pushed it across the counter toward her. No, she didn't want that. She wanted the milk. Finally, he pushed the milk and the necklace across the counter toward her. She grabbed that milk and she ran out of the store. This time, leaving behind a pair of pearl earrings. Well, Hank was so frustrated, he picked up the jewelry, he went outside. He looked up the street, he looked down the street, but that woman was nowhere to be seen. Finally, he took the jewelry, he put it into his drawer, he closed it up, and he locked up his store and waited for the next night. And sure enough, the next night, that same woman came into his store. She looked frantic, she began gesturing toward those tins of milk. He pushed the jewelry toward her. No, she didn't care about the jewelry, she wanted the milk. Finally, he pushed the milk and the jewelry toward her. She grabbed the milk, and she ran out of the store, this time leaving behind a garnet ring. Hank was so upset by this, he took up all the jewelry, he went outside, he walked up the street. He walked down the street. He asked anybody he could see if they had seen a woman that matched his description. But no one had. Finally, a stranger came walking up the street, and Hank began to talk to him and explain what had been going on. The stranger was a wagon master of a wagon train that was camped outside of town. He had come in at this late hour just to see what his people could trade for the next day. And yes, he knew a woman that matched that description. 3 days earlier, a cholera epidemic had swept through the camp. And a woman of that description had been buried with her young child. She had been buried with pearl earrings, a pearl necklace, and a garnet ring. No, Hank said, I couldn't steal these. I can prove that to you. Well, how? We can dig up the grave. You'll see I can take these things. Well, the wagon master agreed as long as Hank could find some tools and some fresh horses. And so we found the horses, they got the tools, and they rode out with some hard riding. They got to the newly dug grave, just as the sun was starting to rise over the mountain. They dug down, and they pulled up that coffin. And with a lever, they raised the lid. Inside that coffin was the very woman that had been in Hank's store the previous 3 evenings. Beside her lay a young child and 3 empty tins of milk. She was wearing no jewelry, but the child was still alive. And if that horse had part from it, He'll be the sweetest little baby